when you saw the ChatGPT and OpenAI and this generative AI come out, I thought, right, this is it. And the question for me then was, what do I do? Do I invest in it? Do I start something now? Or do I kind of hedge my bets? I went back to the American gold rush adage, which was, don't always try and pan for gold, sell shovel.
Piers Linney, Dragon's Den, secret millionaire. That's where he's known. But now this guy's going to blow you away with some of the stuff on AI.
I know very few people where they did it in one go. Serial entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs because they're successful, because they've got the scars. They know where the potholes are and they can avoid most of it. But I do think AI, you're going to see it come full circle. Humans are going to become more interested in human experiences.
Piers Linney, his 5-step framework on how you build success in business, that's going to blow you away for real.
So Piers, success, how does it happen? What's your theory or formula for it?
I think you've probably heard this many times. I think if I had a formula, I'd bottle it, and I'd be a lot more successful. I think it's. I often get asked this question about, especially entrepreneurs, is this something you're born with or something you learn? And I believe it's a mixture of the two. And I think, especially if you look in the before the .com boom, really in the UK especially, most venture capital went into management buyouts. Yeah. So management buyouts are people that probably never expected to own a business. They just became good at what they did.
Yeah.
Their owner, their boss wanted to cash out or got too old or whatever, or had no family to take over. So they bought them out and they became owners and entrepreneurs and they became very wealthy. And that's how the venture capital industry kind of came around in the UK especially. So I think it's part of that, but a lot of it is about risk appetite, the ability to take on risk and take on risk over a long period of time, and all of the associated effects of taking on risk. So sacrifice, you sacrifice time. I mean, I go through my career, but I was a lawyer, then a banker in the city. I thought I worked hard in the city, when I was a banker at Credit Suisse, First Boston, where I didn't go home for days on end, quite literally. I didn't sleep for days and sometimes. But then I thought, well, how hard can building a business be? You know what I mean? And then you start building a business, and it's different because it's quite personal. A lot of entrepreneurs, really, the success initially, you want to make money, you've got this vision, but it's about being proven right, I think, often. You have a thesis, like a hypothesis, and you want to go and prove it and test it, and ideally prove that it's right.
Yeah.
And once it's proven it's right, you might call it product market fit, whatever you want to call it, and then you prove it's right, and then you go, okay, so I showed you, now I'm going to scale it and create wealth and value for myself and my investors. But I found success is something which has sort of, it's taking 5 steps forwards and probably 3 back on most days.
It does.
That's a good day.
It's funny though, when you see, working so hard in the lawyer and that, when you're working with someone else, you work the long hours, but the emotion just isn't the same. It's not personal and that sort of thing. So how did you define success as a young man, and how do you define it today?
So my first business, this is not some reverse engineered founder story.
Yeah.
I lived in the north of England when the Industrial Revolution started. This is in those days when it snowed, it covered your car, right?
Right.
So it's hard work. I had a paper round. Delivered papers for 5-6 days a week. I got paid about £5, $7 then US money. And I thought, there's got to be a better way than this. One morning, something like that, I can't remember how it happened, but my dad said to me, can you go and get the paper on Sunday morning because they don't deliver on Sundays? Don't ask me why I didn't. And so I went and got the paper, brought it back, and he paid for the paper and gave me, let's call it a service fee.
A tip, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, hang on a minute, there's something in this. To kind of cut a long story short, I ended up flying all the neighbours, and nobody wants to get out of bed on a Sunday morning and get the papers. Then I realised, well, I can't buy the paper from the newsagent because there's no margin. It'll be the same price. They're going to give me the money. I've got to hope on tips. Then I worked out that I could buy the paper wholesale from the wholesaler. So I'm now 13 years old. I've disintermediated the local newsagent in today's terminology. And then I made about £20 on a Sunday morning. So to answer your question, really, initially, it was about making money to buy stuff. So I made enough money to buy the shiny BMX bike. This is like 1984 or something. and I got this shiny BMX bike. I actually still know the brand today.
I remember my first Harrow, so
mine was my friend had a Harrow freestyler. I had this called a Curtis, which is a UK brand, and it's still going.
Yeah,
still tiny company, but it's still going.
I still have one of my mates from high school. They still ride their BMX every weekend.
Well, my oldest friend from school, who's in BMX, he's a teacher in Thailand, the same age as me. He's in his early 50s, and he's racing BMXs.
So how did that then evolve? What's the definition now, and what was sort of the process of that?
So going on from there, it was always about having a bit of fun. Mm-hmm. It's more about the money.
Yeah.
So I had, God grief, university, kind of doing parties and things. Not much university really, just working in bars, working for other people. Mm-hmm. Then at law school, I went to law school. I had a business kind of, doing company formation, the various other things. And then with a friend of mine. So
there was never a point where you weren't working or doing something to make money.
What's now called a side hustle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I hate side hustle. I always saw it as a business.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine, we did film financing. He led it and I got involved. He went on to run Lionsgate.
Fantastic.
He's a big wig in the film industry. Great guy. And so always had these kind of side hustles. It was about making money to buy stuff. And then what happened was I was always investing my excess earnings in buying things, investing in things, helping friends do deals. I love doing deals. And over time, as you do in a portfolio, essentially, some died, some kind of the living dead, as we call them, and some, grew. And some of those became quite large, 40 million pounds of revenue, 5 million EBITDA, quite big businesses. When the day came where I thought, you're sitting in board meetings, talking to management, thinking, I can do a better job than these characters. I mean, what are they talking about? I mean, how many slides of numbers can they show me without actually telling me anything? So one day my business partner and I, who bought one of these businesses, which was in telecoms, we kind of stepped in, basically, tentatively at first. Eventually, we became management, built it, and sold it. And that was it about money. And then I think over time, you make a bit of money. I've lost money and made money, as you do. But then as your sort of glass begins to sort of fill, maybe overflow, sometimes you go and get a bigger glass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the bigger jet doesn't make you any happier.
Yeah, I've had the cars, I've had the boat, did the whole thing, the usual story. And then, as everyone says, the best day is having a boat the day you get it and the day you sell it.
Yeah.
And then over time, then you have children, then you get married, and then it begins to change, actually. And what happened to me was a lot of the time was that people said to me, you're very successful, not many people. I'm also Barbados. My dad's English. I grew up in a mill town in Lancashire. I was the only mixed race kid of any Afro-Caribbean heritage in my school of 2,000 kids. So I ticked lots of boxes.
Yeah. So
I ended up on The Secret Millionaire, a bit like Undercover Boss, and then dragging us down like Shark Tank. So I kind of tick these boxes. Whenever I kind of looked in the mirror, people say, you're successful. And I kind of thought, am I? And when I looked around, I realized that success to me wasn't just about the money then. It was about actually being successful to me started being, how do I help other people be successful? Yeah. Why do I help them avoid all the pitfalls and problems I faced? But I was blinkered, right? I was bloody minded, blinkered. You could stand in front of me, I'd dig a hole under you, I'd go around you, I'd step over you, it didn't matter. But not everybody has that DNA.
Yeah.
And not everybody should have that DNA. Some people are, they don't like that. So I sort of started looking at, sort of sharing how I can help people be successful. And I always say that ambition's evenly distributed. Access to capital, opportunity, support, coaching, mentoring isn't. And that has to change. And then I had some periods of time where I lost a little bit of money. And then you're like, oh, hang on a minute. This stuff's not permanent. You got to look after it.
Yeah.
You can't be careless with it. And then I'd go back into slightly other mode of, well, hang on a minute. I need to make some more money. So it kind of changed over time, but I guess the general trajectory has been from making money for the sake of making money into now doing things that I enjoy with people I enjoy doing it with.
And the money comes as a byproduct.
And it comes as the byproduct.
Doing all of that stuff.
Rather than every day panicking about it.
Yeah. When do you think your standard in life became success? Like, was there a point as a kid? Was it as a young man? Or is it just always there from your family?
No, so I didn't grow up in a a difficult family environment. Right?
Yeah.
My dad was a working class lad from Manchester. He was very bright. He went to Cambridge. In those days, he kind of went and he came back.
Yep.
He's not with us anymore, sadly. But he was my sort of role model, mentor. He was my chat GPT, right? He was like an encyclopedia. And my mum was West Indian, came to England in the 60s, was a nurse. We got the Windrush generation here. There's both called the Windrush generation. So they were kind of my role models. Never had any of the role models there. The only one I've ever looked to was Sir Richard Branson. I was lucky enough to go on safari with him because I donated to his charity. And there's a story there about how I ended up on Dragon's Den. He sort of maybe ring the producer and tell them I'm doing it while I was with him. And so no real mentors as such. I had role models. And then what happened was that when I was on the Secret, I was on the Secret Millionaire program. And a lot of people said to me, "You're on the Secret Millionaire program? You did keep that a secret." Because you had like a Porsche and a townhouse. But no one ever thought of you as successful or wealthy. I wasn't super wealthy, right? Enough to sort of tick the boxes. But then you start thinking, oh, right, okay. And people start looking at it in a slightly different light then. And people think that because you've been on Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, you're a billionaire. I know billionaires, right? And they've got a very different lifestyle to me. You're sort of comfortable. And now I think, I'll make more money. You can see, often with me, I find that I've sort of planted seeds.
Yeah.
And then over the years, you sort of sow them. Some don't flower and some do. And there's a period of time where I had business that sell on a fire sale. I got divorced and I was just a bit like, I didn't do much really. So I wasn't kind of sowing these seeds.
Right.
So there was a period of time, like a fallow period almost, where I had my kind of asset base and the kind of income that generated. But it's only more recently where you started to see these things trigger again. And I really enjoyed that. I kind of missed it.
Yeah.
Wise man once said to me, always invest in young people because as you get older, they get into their prime and they're making a lot more money for you at that point. I'm going to come back to the den stuff in just a little bit. Your idea on the relationship between failure and success, like how do they relate? Do they relate? What's your thoughts?
And, I know very few people, I know a lot of successful people, some very like billionaires. And when you hear their story, it is one of both success and failure. I know very few people, in fact, I can't think of one actually, where they did it in one go.
Yeah.
They started something and they made a fortune and they exited.
And even if they are the Zuckerbergs, he still failed at so many things along the way and made so many mistakes.
Then I would say to entrepreneurs, I always say, because people look at you, like, with BizX, and you talk to people and they're kind of like, well, I've got a business. And I'm kind of, look, great. Do your best with it. But don't expect this always to be, especially your first one, the one that makes you. You learn as you go. Serial entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs because they're successful, because they've got the scars. They know where the potholes are and they can avoid most of them.
Now, once you've learned leadership, you've learned leadership. Once you've learned sales, you've learned sales. And it doesn't matter the business, you can apply the skills across the board. Here's bicycle business. We talked about us having BMXs as kids, but how did you get into the business of bikes?
So I've always loved bikes, right?
Yeah.
There's a period where I didn't have a bike. I was living in London, doing my thing, trying to make money. And then one day I realized, I can't bother with this traffic anymore. The subway, the tube. So I bought a bike. And then my old friend from school said, you've got a bike, you should get a mountain bike and come with us at the weekend. Because they were riding off-road on mountain bike. I thought, well, okay, fair enough. And of course, I got obsessed with things, right? So I got into mountain bikes.
You bought the 6,000 quid bike.
Exactly, So I had 3 of them. A hardtail, a downhill.
Would have been cheaper to buy the company.
I had a hardtail, different brands. And then there was a phase where when I was on like Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, whenever the press did a shoot with me, I always tried to involve a bike. It's like a bit of a joke, actually. I was having a bike in the city of London, all over the place. So there's a well-known mountain bike family called the Athertons, right? Mm-hmm. So Rachel's won the World Cup 6 times. G's won it twice. And the other brother, Athy, he's very well known for he's won World Cup races, but very well for building all these the tracks. And they, on Instagram, I got a message one day saying, hi, do you want to talk to us about building a bike brand? And he said, like, if you like cars, It's like Lewis Hamilton texting you.
Yes.
So, gonna start a car company. And I was like, what? Anyway, so I met them. And cut a very long story short, you've got elite athletes, a load of material scientists, and you know that that's a recipe for disaster, right? Starting a business. Then you had me. And then you had a chap who used to run the race team called Dan, who I thought should be the sort of CEO. So I wrote an MOU about 10 pages thick, saying, right, just to be clear, this is what we're planning on doing. This is the idea. But I could see that this additive manufactured, like 3D printing technology these guys had, they are geniuses. The Athertons, the brand, the
story,
the obsession with excellence, and then myself and Dan who could actually run the business. So we started the business, we crowdfunded it. This is where in business you always think, well, you've got the Athertons, let's just crowdfund it. So we crowdfunded about £1.5 million, £6 million, I think it was, half angels, half crowd. Raise the money, we've got all these people now. So you launch the product, they're all going to buy a bike. And not one of them, they were fans, not customers.
Yeah.
So it's funny, isn't it? You always make these assumptions. It's the unknown unknowns, isn't it, in business? That's what business is about, not the known unknowns. So then COVID hit. Suddenly, the supply chain of the products, when you build bikes, what you make is a frame. Pedals, the cranks, the bars, the forks, the stem, everything is OEM. Somebody else makes it. So we had a problem there, slowed it down. But going back to success, the Athertons, they ground away the design, they're testing it. The material scientists kept going in design, perfecting it. And we kept going in the business and raising the finance and the marketing. And you just keep grinding away, don't you? And and this is what people struggle with in business when you're starting a company. It's that compounding. It's very slow at first. It's the old, you pass a lake and there's a tiny bit of algae, you walk your dog on day one, and you pass it every day and it doubles in size every day. And after 30 days, that bit of algae is covering half the lake. And you think, God grief, how will it take to cover the whole lake? And it's a day.
It's one more day.
So it's that compounding that we saw. And then eventually the product began to show its ability. And Rachel won a World Cup race. The team won two World Cup races. The bikes won the World Championship first and second. And then suddenly it takes off.
Yeah. Suddenly magic.
It's 5 years of graft and staring at each other thinking, where's the next investment coming from?
But that is business. You have to put in the time. It's the same as investing. It's the same as anything. It looks like nothing's happening. My personal trainer said to me, when I got back on training again, he said, for the first 30 days, it'll feel like nothing. For the next 30 days, you'll feel something. And then for the next 30 days, someone else will notice.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
But business, that's for the first year or two, and then a year or two of you noticing, and then a year or two till the others. But
the beauty has been as well is this innovation. It's using that aircraft technology, that Formula One race technology in bikes and doing it in different ways. Because normally when you buy these carbon fiber mountain bikes, they have to make them months in advance and ship them from usually Taiwan. Our record is, it was a race in the Alps. One of the Athertons didn't like the way it's set up. So we actually changed the design, changed the geometry, reprinted the lugs, the joints, put the frame back together, got it back out to them for a race 3 days later.
Damn.
Can't do that.
But see, this is where, your standards, and you even said this when you bought the bikes for yourself, your standard is best of the best of the best. Do you think that's a reason why you're successful in business? Do you think that's a part of it?
No, I think I've been successful because it's the people you choose to work with.
But they're the best of the best. You got the Athertons and these scientists.
Oh yeah, in that scenario, absolutely right. But I could see that. But even then, when you think you've got all the ingredients for the perfect cake, it doesn't quite rise the way you think it's going to. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Yeah. But it's also what gives you grey hair.
So, Dragon's Den, Shark Tank in the States, Den over here. How do you pick someone to invest in, or do you pick the ideas? What's your theory, person or idea, or is it both?
So I will say that. So my background is, venture capital lawyer, banking, and the Den, being an angel investor as well. I was on the board of the government bank in the UK
Yes.
during COVID, right? So in the US, you had the
Like $90 billion
90
allocated.
billion we rolled out, yeah. So it'd be like the PPE?
PPE in the States,
So I was on the board of the bank there. So I know the sort of financing market and people raising money. And I think in the den, essentially it's an angel investment, okay? Yes, televised, you've got cameras pointing at you. But the issue with trying to put business on TV is that we both know that most of it is 10 years of graft and admin, right? But that moment where you put your dreams, aspiration on the table and someone sat in a chair with a hunk of cash next to them, saying, yes or no, right? That's televisual.
Yeah.
But most of it isn't. So I think whether you're in the den or whether it's a very young company, so you've got a spectrum. You go from person with an idea to, I don't know, buying out a very large utility company. Right? That utility company, it's regulatory risk. The whole man could disappear in a horrible accident, wouldn't matter, place them next day. Whereas with that person with the idea, you're investing really in the person. Because the idea, by the time it makes money, won't be the same idea. Can you work with them? Can they pivot? Can they put up with the sacrifice of the hours, the stress of building a business? And can they do it for probably, everybody always says, 3 to 5 years. It's 10. It's a decade to get from that compounding curve to get to anywhere valuable. It's 10 years, I don't care anybody says. So have they got 10 years of energy to put into this? So it's always the person, but as you move out, if you look at series, angel investment, seed, series A, B, C, each one really is like an onion ring. You're ticking off different risks. But when you're starting out the idea, it's all risks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Any favorite ones that you've picked to invest in?
So I did, the best one actually was, I invested in, it was a personalized children's content. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the first deals in Dragon's Den, was a proper tech deal. So I only got 4% for £100,000. And all the other dragons were kind of, what are you doing? The program was usually like 50 grand for 30%. And I was like, well, these guys had a term sheet for VC and they're some 3 PhDs. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And they sold that for, some of the numbers not popular, but I got a 45x return.
Yeah, so that's a favorite, obviously.
That was quite good, yeah.
Any fun ones that you did that didn't work out?
Yeah, there's one, so the curry company, great team, great story, great product. But this was kind of like, most curries are like curry paste, it's like long lived. And this was like fresh curry, a bit like pasta sauce. Mm-hmm. And the supermarkets loved it, but had nowhere to put it. Because there was no like fresh curry. So part of the problem was not the fact the product wasn't great, it was the fact they didn't have a chilled, fresh air place to put this product.
Yeah, no one knew what it was or where to place it.
So it just didn't work out.
Yeah, a lot of the times people come up with an idea that's just too new. They're like, well, I got the newest, latest, greatest idea and no one knows about it. And it's like,
well, look at .com 1.0, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of the ideas then, they resurfaced 10 years later and worked out.
Yeah, I like being second into a market once they've proven that it works and that sort of thing. When you think about growing any business today, what are some of the ingredients you say they must have these things for us to know it's going to succeed?
So I did a talk today at BizX in the UK, and I did one on AI, about, and one of my 5 factors. And so they're quite generic, but it was planning. You need to have a plan. You need to know where your point B is from your point A. So you make decisions that get you closer to it, not some shiny object syndrome. People was a big one, about you've got to look at yourself as well. You know? Maybe you need a coach, whatever it might be, support, guidance, non-execs, mentors, who knows, but look at yourself, look at your team. Are they the right team to go on a journey? Moving from generalist to specialist. Operations, there's no point trying to scale a business unless you've got your ducks in a row. I call it in the UK a pantomime horse on stage. So if the front end moves way too quickly and detaches, it's very hard to put it back together again. It's done. And then finance is the big one, understanding finance, the options, what raising money means, not trying to raise the wrong money, push a square peg through a round hole. And the last one was kind of technology. So I went through those 5, and to me, they're the 5 pillars. And within there, don't forget, you or somebody you employ needs to be able to sell stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, marketing and sales is kind of important in
helps,
business at this day and age.
Well, hey there, and thanks for listening. I've noticed that 78% of you are brand new, which means you haven't hit the subscribe button yet. By subscribing, you help us bring on even better guests, better quality content, and serve you better with even more podcasts. So please hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. It makes a huge difference. If you support us, we're going to support your success and help you achieve big success together.
Piers, AI. Everyone's sort of like enamored by it or scared by it. Give us your thoughts on where it's at and where it's going first.
So I was a trustee of Nesta, the UK's largest innovation foundation, about 6 years. And we did, well, not we, they, I didn't do it, a lot of research on the impact of, this is pre-generative AI, AI robotics on kind of workforces. And one of the interesting things was the outcome was that creatives are safe, which hasn't quite proven to be the case. But, I grew up in the northwest of England, okay, literally where the first industrial revolution started. Everyone was at school, we talked about mills and weavers' cottages, and we looked out the window and we could point at them, the teacher. And then I was fascinated by the revolutions, and then Web sort of 1.0 is when I left the city and Wall Street, became an entrepreneur. I kind of played about in Web 2 a little bit, made a bit of money in Web 3, done okay recently. But then when you saw ChatGPT and OpenAI and this generative AI come out 2 years ago now, I thought, right, this is it. This is productized, commoditized intelligence, right? It's only good at certain things. I think that the AI we're using today, it might not be the one we actually end up using down the line. There'll be different technologies, different models, different approaches. But I thought, this is the wave that I was born to swim into, to paddle into.
Yeah.
And the question for me then was, which I thought about quite long and hard, was, what do I do? Do I invest in it? Do I start something now? And what's that going to be? Or do I kind of hedge my bets a bit? So I went back to the American gold rush adage, which was, don't always try and pan for gold, sell shovels.
Yeah.
So we started out, I'm going to implement AI, kind of selling shovels. So we kind of productized how we help you understand where your business is, how you could use it, where it would add value, training, because obviously quite important training. If you can't use the tools, you get kind of garbage in, garbage out. And then we kind of said to companies, okay, there you go. This was great. We want to see it work. So now we're kind of, oh, hang on a minute. Now we're into MVPs, proof of concept, no code, low code, code. Then we're into proof of concept from the company say, it works quite well. The ROI is amazing. Can we pilot it? Now we're into pilots over longer periods of time, proving the ROI. And then the client starts saying, great, implement it.
Yeah.
And then you get into the conversation of, what is our product? Where's the value going to accrue? Almost in like a pipeline. Do you want to get into developing applications? So I believe that software as a service will not go away. It will evolve, because when you can talk to machines and code yourself in plain English, you don't have to use applications that have been designed by third parties for the biggest TAM. You can design an application automation that runs the business the way that you want to run your business, not how company X is telling you to. So that's quite exciting, I think. So we kind of thought, and then I was thinking, well, we build these AI agents. What is this? What's our product? How do I describe it? So I was on one of our motorways. As you do, I talk to ChatGPT Plus because it's a fantastic sounding board.
Yeah.
And I said, how do I explain all these different agents to people that we want to have that can communicate, collaborate, and learn? ChatGPT said to me, think of them as musicians with instruments. Okay, I get it. Your product is not individual musicians of instruments. You're selling the orchestra. I was like, thank you. I said, but nobody wants an orchestra. Yes, but someone might want like a jazz band where you pick certain musicians and instruments to create. I was like, thank you very much. And then he started thinking, oh my God, I'm talking to a machine that is, you can only do certain things. I'm talking to a toaster really, but it's giving me these fantastic ideas and helped me think in ways that I come up with things I would have done myself.
Yeah.
So the jury stood out on, I think, where the value is going to accrue. The real value is in that tech stack, the fabs, the GPU, the cloud infrastructure, the hyperscale infrastructure, the LLMs, and then innovating across the top is exciting, but also nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
You never quite know where the next iteration of LLM is going to just disrupt you and put you out of business.
You know, when you look at the basic tasks in a business, AI is eating them up. I mean, the customer service capabilities, all of that stuff, it's just eating up all of that stuff. When we get to that top end of town, like for us as business coaches, you know, we're live and local. We do the coaching with you. We're live, we're local, but still building the Brad bot right now, teaching my bot everything from my brain. It's kind of fun, but it's also kind of challenging to think of where will we go with this. The average business owner, my gut feel is that AI is not going to be something they need to really dive into straight away. Big companies are getting in there. Where do you see it impacting that SME right now? How does AI impact the SME?
So a couple of things. So one is I have this. I did a presentation today. I have this ship I built. It's a picture of a ship in a harbour with millions of people around it, a couple on it, and it's about to leave the harbour. I built it and did it mid-journey. And the point is that this technological ship is leaving the harbour, right?
Yeah.
And the people left in the harbour are not going to be admin assistants, Uber drivers, truck drivers. It's going to be very expensive knowledge workers because they've got an enormous bullseye on their back. Lawyers, accountants, eventually that's knowledge workers. Eventually you've got embodied AI, robotics. So you're going to have people that, surgeons, probably maybe in my lifetime when we're children, it'd be illegal for a human to work on a construction site because you can't get insurance, or drive a car in an urban conurbation, who knows? So that's one issue. You've got to get onto the boat, start using it, embracing it, and understanding it. Because as it moves away, if that gap between the quayside and the boat becomes too big, it's going to be very hard to make a leap and to catch up. So my view is most companies is just get involved and understand it. The next point really I would say is that I think there'll be a battle for the middle ground. So, I mean, this is very generic, but the large enterprises, okay, if you make jet engines, right, that's what you do, or nuclear power stations, quite different. They were always the big enterprise, the big customers. Let's look at FMCG. And then you've got this SME, the small company, with that personal touch, customization. So if you make, custom, wooden furniture, GE's never going to do that. You're never going to make jet engines. However, in the middle, lots of services where the big players now can hyper-personalize. They can come after that long tail. And the long tail has now got the technology to go after some of the big enterprise customers because they can now, it's credible. They don't have to write expensive writing code and applications, LLMs, do a lot of the hard work for them. So I think you've got this overlap in the middle, and it's what I call the battle for the middle ground. And that's going to play out. That's going to be interesting.
I love the fact that we as small business now have an ability to compete where we, previously had to spend millions of dollars building a piece of software. Now,
well, cloud was the first.
Yes.
Cloud was first, like all the infrastructure. You could buy a subscription model, whatever the hell you wanted. Anything in a big company could. And now, the LLM means that, I've spent it. Maybe you have. I've lost millions of pounds or spent it trying to build software and investments or directly projects that never worked. And you're like, oh my God. Whereas now, if you can talk to machines and ask them for an outcome and it writes the code and you get an outcome and you go, that's not quite right, it needs to do that, and it rewrites the code, that means that your ability to innovate using code is kind of exponentially increases. But it also means the big players can do it as well.
So let's talk the old scale philosophy of business. Obviously, AI is going to assist in scale. Pre-AI, though, what were your things about a business scaling must do A, B, and C? Is there certain things you see in the ones that really scale versus those that don't?
I mean, the ones that obviously have really scaled in more recent years are the ones where, your marginal cost of producing another product or adding another customer is minimal. Right. Hence why venture capitalists love software as a service, right? It's just built for them, essentially. But I think you're going to see that I think software as a service is going to be disrupted. I think there's been billions of dollars invested in SaaS, especially B2B SaaS, or over the last 10-year funds, 7-year investments, last, say, 5 years. It's probably not going to be worth what they thought it was because of generative AI. So that's the the beauty of software is the ability to scale, and that marginal cost of adding a customer revenue doesn't scale with it. But the beauty of AI, I think, is that you can now limit your cost. Maybe it's people, especially. We're a big fan of voice, the voice interface, essentially. And you can maybe increase your revenue growth. So the gap in between is more margin, more profit, more valuable business, more wealth. But essentially, to scale, it's my 5 factors, really. It's the plan, obviously, but it's the people, the operational excellence, and it's ready to scale. So the front end isn't detached from the back end. Your finance, but increasingly it's technology. But I do think, interestingly, that I think with AI, you're going to see it come full circle. That humans are going to become more interested in human experiences.
Yeah.
So you might find, and the other interesting thing is this, quite hard to get your head around, is that we value knowledge work. Hedge fund managers, lawyers, accountants, consultants, right? That's been productized, been commoditized. So in the future, who are we going to value? Is it going to be a hairdresser, a stonemason, a masseuse, a coach? Because machines can't do that stuff. But there's all this stuff we value for, probably 2 industrial revolutions at least, is going to be commoditized. They're going to go to zero. So if that goes to zero, you can scale it, but the value may start to accrue elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. I was just in Monterrey, Mexico, and I got to go to one of the car plants there and just see the level of robotics in that car plant. And, I look at it and I look back to when they first started making cars to this, and the speed with which that change has happened, the speed with which AI is going to shift the market. Are you seeing it going at faster and faster pace, or where do you see that?
Yeah, so it's like that exponential curve. It's compounding. We don't quite know how steep it's going to be, or when the foothills, or the trajectory is going to be of that curve, but it's happening. And also, again, as I said before, the AI we have now may not be the AI we actually end up using, the models, the way it actually works. And a lot of AGI, which is a whole different thing, where it's recursive and it can learn, that changes the game. But it is there and it's compounding. So I often say in my presentations that you're going to start to see in the next 24 months more news articles about we're not hiring these people aren't needed anymore. And you'll start to see that trickle become a flood of news.
Buddy, I've played with it. One of the keys to my success is I'm really good at marketing. I'm really good at testing ads and refining the message and doing all that stuff. Well, I feel like I'm out of a job with that. Like, AI can now analyze hundreds of versions of an ad for pennies on the dollar to what it used to. I'd be able to...
Or forget this.
And it'll do it instantly.
You can launch an ad, and in real time, it'll test it and amend the copy and the imagery created in real time.
Oh my God.
That's where it's going. And the other thing people don't understand is, right, the internet's going away. In
the current version.
This cyberspace of all these little shops and HTML locations where you turn up there and you've got these search engines searching for them, give you a list of stuff, right? You're going to have an agent that's going to know what you like, who you are, what your heartbeat is, what mood you're in, what's in your diary. So you're going to say, I want a barbecue for the weekend, got family coming. I want a new one, really. I'll pay, $300, but I'll pay $150 for a second-hand one if it's in good condition. Thank you very much. So your AI goes away, talks to all the other AIs that have Barbies, new ones and old ones, and they say, all the internet becomes an AI, an agent, with an inventory. Your AI talks to it, negotiates, comes back to you and says, I can get you a new one here. I'm negotiating this second-hand one. It can be delivered by Friday, or this will be Saturday morning. Could be risky. I'll take the second-hand one Friday morning. It's gone. That's the internet.
Yeah.
So this place we find ourselves lost in and searching around is going away.
I do love the fact that, Apple, are they behind their head? Well, talking to Siri or talking to Alexa is going to be a big thing in the future.
That's going to be a game changer. I'm waiting to see the day when you can have a conversation with Siri or Alexa as you can with, say, ChatGPT Plus.
Yeah.
We're
not far off
their
this
distribution
stuff.
And Google Home, their distribution is enormous, but I think they've got to work out a way of paying for it.
Yes. Monetizing it will be a thing. Final question then. I ask everyone this. What's the best quote you ever heard on, or the best advice you ever got about being successful?
One of my favourite quotes, though, I think does apply to entrepreneurs, is from Winston Churchill. It's not quite exact, but it roughly says this, is that there is nothing more exhilarating for a young man than to be shot at and missed.
All right. Why that one?
As an entrepreneur, that's what it feels like quite often in many ways. It's like excitement of being out there on the field essentially, and trying to win battles or win a war, and you're kind of winning small battles. And to not done quite, that's what it feels like. I always remember that one.
Big success, Piers Linney. Follow, read, study, learn all you can. We'll be back next week with more of your success.
You've been listening to the Big Success Podcast with the #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars. To learn more about how to achieve business and personal success, as well as how to level up or listen to past episodes, visit www.bradsugars.com.